Hello, welcome to this instructional video. Today we're going to be looking at how to do your first operation using the CATIA Prismatic Machining Workbench. If you haven't done so already, please look at the video that looks at setting up machining options. What that does is it goes to the Tools Options menu and shows you how to set up the options that are required for machining. You should do that first before doing this video. Today we're just going to start off by creating a simple operation to face this part, which you see in front of you. Normally, before you go into the machining workbench, you have done all your design work. So what you see in front of you is a multi-body part. If you go over to the part tree, you'll see that there are two bodies in the tree. One is the part body and one is the stock. I'll just temporarily hide the stock so you can see the geometry of the part that we'll be machining, and we'll be using this as an example throughout the term to get you familiar with the different machining operations. So this is the part body, and then the stock is just simply almost rectangular. There are these corners on it with fillets, which of course overlaps the final geometry. This is one way in which you can start off. Obviously, you can also do it using assemblies, where you have one of the bodies in one part and the other body in another part, and we will show you how to do that at some point in time. But to start off with, both the geometry of your part and the workpiece are in a single part file. A couple of things to point out. There's a geometrical set here, and in this set I've created a point which I'm going to use for the part origin, and that's up here. I recommend that you set your geometry up so that when you go to your standard XY views, your top view, if you look at the compass up here, I'm looking down on my XY plane, and according to the convention that we use, our part origin is set up on the top right hand corner of the part. We do this both for CATIA as well as for manual part programming. So if there isn't a point there, in this case there isn't a sharp corner, so I had to create that point so I could pick it to set up the origin for the machining coordinate system, as you'll see in a little bit. The other thing that's in this set is a safety plane, and if I rotate the model around, you'll see that there is this plane here, and that's hovering 200 thousandths above the top of the part. And again, that's similar to what we've done for manual machining. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch over and go into the Prismatic Machining Workbench. So click on the Start menu, move down all the way to Machining, and then click on Prismatic Machining. It'll take a second or two, or longer, depending on how busy things are on the server. And what you should see in front of you is the new display of toolbars for the Prismatic Machining Workbench. What should be obvious to you right away is the tree in the top right hand corner looks significantly different. I'm going to just expand this a bit to make it a little bit larger so you can see. What we have in the tree are three things: your process list, your product list, and your resource list. And at the moment, pretty much the only thing that's in here is under the product list. So if I expand this out, you'll see that the part in which the geometry of the workpiece and the final geometry are present. If I expand this out further, I'll eventually get down to where I can see the part body and the stock body, as well as that set in which I have the part origin and the safety plane. Okay, so now that I've shown you where the part geometry is, let's go into the process list. I'm going to expand this out here, and I'm going to drill down. Under the process list, there's a process, there's a part operation, as you can see here, and then a machining process list. The part operation, if you expand that out, there's a manufacturing program. The best way to think of a part operation is a setup. So within a setup, you may have one or more manufacturing programs. A manufacturing program, you may consider that equivalent to an NC program. So in a given setup, you might have more than one program that's used to machine different parts on that setup. So I would recommend that every time you create a new setup, meaning you take the part off the fixture and you flip it over, you add another part operation. If you look around your toolbars, you should be able to find a toolbar which is called the manufacturing toolbar, and here you see you can create a new part operation by clicking on this, or a new manufacturing program by clicking on this. Right now we won't do that because we're just going to get started working in our first setup. Before we do this, however, before we get creating operations, we do have to go ahead and set some parameters inside the part operation, and the way to do that is to double click on the part operation, and what you have here is a dialog window which has the name of the part operation. You're free to edit that if you want to, if it helps you remember what your setup is, as well as some comments. And then there are a bunch of buttons here that you need to visit, not all of them, but a good chunk of them, to set up several things. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select our machine. So I'm going to click on this top button here, and this is the machine editor dialog window. Up here are the types of machines that one can set up. The default machine is a 3-axis machine, and you shouldn't change this because everything we're doing in this class in 322 is on the Haas 3-axis machines. So please leave this selected. These tabs here, the only tab here that you need to be concerned about is the last one, the numerical control tab. And this is pretty important because this is where you get to select your post processor, and the post processor is what is used to convert the way CATIA generates the toolpaths into proper G&M code. So we need to select the post processor that corresponds to the machine that we have in our lab. So if you click on the flyout here, you'll see a list of machines, and what you want to do is scroll down this list and select the one that says Haas VF series.lib. Be careful not to select the Haas.lib. That's not the correct one. The one that corresponds to our machines in the lab is the Haas VF series.lib. So go ahead and select this. You also need to select a post processor's words table. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and I'm going to slide down here until I get to the Haas.pp table, post processor words table. I'm going to select this and have that added here. And these are the only things here that you need to be concerned about, and again, this is really important if your code is going to generate correctly at the end of the day. So once you've done these two things, hit the OK button, and that brings us back to our part operation, or our setup definition. The next button down is our reference machining system axis, or our selection of this. If you go and look at the display and move it around a bit, you'll see that there is a green coordinate system that by default is visible. And right now it's set up right at the part origin of the actual geometry of the part. However, again, if I go to my top view, you notice that that coordinate system is really on the bottom left hand corner, meaning that the part's in the first quadrant, and according to what we do in this class, we want the coordinate system up here on the top right hand corner so that the part's in the third quadrant. So we're going to have to move this coordinate system from where it is right now to this point that's been created for it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the second button here, and what you will see is that there is a illustration, and if you move your mouse over the illustration, you'll see that different parts of it highlight in orange. So this is actually a pickable illustration, and this is something that you'll see time and time again when you do machining in CATIA. There will be these illustrations where you can pick on different parts of it to allow you to select and define geometry in particular. Right now, the main thing that you're going to want to pick here is this dot in the center, which allows you to pick your origin, the location of the coordinate system. So I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to move over here and select this point. And you can see now that the coordinate system has moved from the bottom left hand corner to the point I picked, and everything here shows up green. And that means it's been selected, so CATIA knows that the coordinate system has been selected. So just to point out that previously it was red, even though you did see the coordinate system down there, if you wanted to leave the coordinate system at the bottom left hand corner here, you would still have to click the button and reselect it in order to turn the screen for the coordinate system to actually be understood by CATIA. So this has to be green, in other words. It can't be red if the coordinate system is properly set up. So again, if I go to my top view, my XY view, you can see that the x-axis is off to the right, y-axis is up, and the part's completely within the third quadrant. So I'm going to hit OK, and that's my part coordinate system selected. I'm going to move downwards now to these buttons down here. This first button here is where I select the design part for simulation. So I have to select the design, that's the final geometry, as well as the stock. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. And there are a couple of ways you can select the design. One is graphically, the other is by selecting the body that corresponds to the geometry you want. So I'm going to go ahead and temporarily hide the stock so that I can go ahead and pick the body. Now when you click with your left mouse, nothing happens, or it appears that nothing happens, but you have in fact selected it. To bring the dialog window back, you actually have to move the mouse off the part and double click to indicate that you have completed the pick, because it is in fact possible for you to pick multiple bodies for your part body. Let's say you had a fixture which had multiple bodies and you wanted to be able to machine more than one part at the same time. You can do it by picking each. So I'm going to move off the part and double click. The dialog window comes back, and you should see a path here that indicates the path in the product tree to the part body. So I have prismatic 1, prismatic 1 again, and then the part body, and that confirms that you've selected it correctly. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the stock. So I'm going to come over here and unhide the stock. I'm going to select the stock button, and then I'm going to double click, or just click on the stock, sorry, and then double click on the background, and again the path here should confirm that you have correctly selected the stock. So that's our part geometry and stock selected. The remaining buttons here, the only one that you need to be concerned about right now is the safety plane. So this is your global safety plane. It's good to have that selected. It means that this is the plane that the tool will go to on approaches and retracts. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, and I'm going to select the plane. Again, you can either select from the tree or select from the graphic window. I'm going to select the plane. In this case, the window pops right back up, so you don't have to double click in the background. Okay, and that's pretty much everything you need to define for the part operation or setup. Once you're done with this, you can go ahead and hit the OK button like this. Okay, we have now defined our part operation or setup. Now we are going to go ahead now and start adding machining operations. Before we do this, just look momentarily at the tree again. Our part operation is up here. If you go down to the very last entry in the tree, this is our resource list, and what you can see here now is that the machine that we've defined when we set up the machine within the part operation is now part of the resource list. So by double clicking on this, you can come back in and modify things. We don't want to do anything here right now, but I'm just pointing out that you can access your machine through the resource list now, in addition to going back into the part operation. Other things that will show up in the resource list are tools. Once you start creating your operations and adding tools, you'll start to see a list of tools showing up here under the resource list. Okay, I'm going to expand out my part operation so that I can see my manufacturing program. I'm going to start creating operations now. The first one I'm going to create, of course, is a facing operation, and I'm going to place that facing operation inside this manufacturing program. So consider this an NC program. I'll put a facing operation to start, and then I'll probably have a bunch of other operations to do things like end milling or drilling and so on, and all of those will belong to more than likely this one manufacturing program. Let's look at the toolbars. So I'm going to pull a toolbar off here, and I'm going to set it up so that it's horizontal. I'm going pull it off again.